But the very beginning of this story is an exciting story, and we're going to have a performance this morning about that story. Lester Hill and Hollis Brown are going to tell the story in the form of poem and musical interpretation for us this morning.
And God stepped out on space. And he looked around and said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. And as far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything, blacker than 100 midnights down in a cypress swamp. Then God smiled, and the light broke, and the darkness rolled up on one side, and the light stood shining on the other, and God said, that's good. Then God reached out and took the light in his hand, and he rolled the light around in the palm of his hand until he made the sun, and he set that sun ablazing in the heavens. And the light that was left over from making the sun, God gathered it up into a great shining ball and flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon and the stars. And then down between the darkness and the light, he hurled the world. Then God himself stepped down. And the sun was on his right hand, and the moon was on his left, and the stars were clustered about his head, and the earth was under his feet. And God walked, and where he trod, his footsteps hollowed the valleys out and bulged the mountains up. Then God stopped. And he looked around and saw that the earth was hot and barren. So he stepped over to the edge of the world, and he spat out the 7 seas. He batted his eyes, and the lightnings flashed. He clapped his hands, and the thunders rolled. And the waters above the earth came down, the cooling waters came down. And God smiled again, and a rainbow appeared and curled itself around his shoulders. Then God raised his arm and waved his hand over the sea and over the land, and he said, bring forth, bring forth. And quicker than God could drop his hand, fishes and fowls, beasts and birds swam the rivers and the seas, roamed the forests and the woods, and split the air with their wings. And God said, that's good. And God looked around on all that he had made. He looked at his sun. He looked at his moon. He looked at his little stars. He looked on his world with all its living things, and God said, I'm lonely still. So God sat down on the side of a hill where he could think. By a deep, wide river he sat down. And with his head in his hands, he thought, and he thought, till he thought, I'll make me a man. Up from the bed of the river, God scooped the clay, and by the bank of the river, he kneeled him down. And there, the great God Almighty lit the sun and fixed it in the sky, who flung the stars to the farmost corners of the night, who rounded the earth in the middle of his hand. This great God, like a mother bending over her baby, kneeled down in the dust, toiling over a lump of clay till he shaped it in his own image. And then into it he blew the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Amen. Amen.
Well, yeah, that's fact. That's a hard act to follow. Whew, that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful story. It's just it's amazing the power that human beings have as we try to wrap our mind around this wonderful thing that happens, this wonderful thing that is this creative presence of God that tries to express itself and does so without Kleenex. We need a Kleenex. I'll just wipe it on my hand. Thank you, thank you. That's a great story.